In 1942, the United States Navy was in trouble. The Japanese Mitsubishi A6M0 had ripped through Allied air units. It was lighter, faster, and in the hands of veteran pilots, almost untouchable. American fighters, particularly the F-4F Wildcat, were getting shredded. Pilots returned to carriers shaken, if they returned at all. The Navy needed something new. Not in 2 years, not next spring. They needed it now. And that's when a group of engineers at Grumman Aircraft, known by their peers as the Iron Works, got the call. Their reputation came from one thing: toughness. Every aircraft they built could take a beating and keep flying, but the next challenge would push them beyond anything they'd ever imagined. The order was simple: build a carrier-based fighter that could beat the Zero at its own game and survive the fight. Inside Grumman's Long Island factory, the pressure was suffocating. Prototypes were being drawn up in weeks instead of months. Early test flights pushed limits, sometimes ending in disaster. One test pilot, Bob Hall, nearly lost his life during an early run when the prototype's controls locked up mid-air. Yet, instead of grounding the project, that flight gave birth to an entirely new design philosophy: build a fighter that forgives mistakes. So they started again. They reinforced the fuselage, added thicker armor around the cockpit, and re-engineered the landing gear to handle brutal carrier landings. Then came the biggest decision of all: the heart of the beast. Originally, the plane was supposed to use the same power plant as the Wildcat, but Grumman's engineers knew that wasn't enough. They convinced the Navy to let them swap it for something bigger: the Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp engine, a 2,000 horsepower monster also used in the P-47 Thunderbolt and F-4U Corsair. With that, the Hellcat was born. The F-6F didn't look revolutionary at first glance: simple lines, broad wings, sturdy frame. But beneath the skin, it was built for domination. The design philosophy was ruthless practicality, reliability over elegance, power over flair. Its massive wings allowed short takeoffs from carriers. 6 50-caliber Browning machine guns lined its nose, capable of unleashing a curtain of lead that could rip through enemy aircraft in seconds. And those wings? They folded neatly to fit tight carrier decks, a small detail that allowed the Navy to pack more of them aboard each ship. But paper performance means nothing without proof. The Hellcat needed to fight. When it first joined the fleet in 1943, few outside Grumman expected much. The early skepticism vanished the moment it entered combat. The first Hellcat squadrons faced Japan's best, and the results were devastating. Dogfights that once ended in panic now ended with victory. Pilots who had once flown Wildcats described the Hellcat as a revelation. It climbed faster, dove steeper, and most importantly, took hits that would have torn any other plane apart. One pilot said, "You could fly it back with the tail shot off, oil spraying the canopy, and it'd still get you home." And that wasn't exaggeration. The Hellcat's thick armor plating, self-sealing fuel tanks, and rugged construction made it almost unkillable. It didn't need to outturn the Zero, it just needed to outlast it. The strategy changed too. Instead of trying to match the Zero in slow-speed dogfights, Hellcat pilots learned to use their superior dive speed and power. They'd attack from above, strike fast, and climb back out of reach. Boom and zoom, hit and disappear, and it worked, better than anyone expected. By mid-1943, Hellcats were scoring kills at an unprecedented rate. In one encounter over the Solomon Islands, A small squadron of Hellcats shot down nearly every Japanese fighter they faced, without a single loss. The legend grew quickly. Word spread across the Pacific that the Americans had a new fighter, one the Japanese couldn't touch. Then came the moment that sealed its place in history. June 1944, the Battle of the Philippine Sea, the largest carrier battle ever fought. Japan threw hundreds of aircraft into the skies, desperate to turn the tide. What followed became known as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Hellcats ripped through wave after wave of attackers. By the end of the battle, U.S. pilots had shot down nearly 300 enemy aircraft in a single day. 300. For the Japanese, it was catastrophic. Their best pilots were gone, and the Hellcat had proven it wasn't just a fighter, it was an apex predator. After that, control of the skies over the Pacific was never in doubt again. But this story isn't just about numbers, it's about people. Behind the statistics were pilots who became living legends. David McCampbell, the U.S. Navy's top ace, scoring 34 aerial victories, including 9 in a single mission. Alex Vraciu shot down 6 enemy planes in 8 minutes. Butch O'Hare, who pioneered the Navy's night fighting tactics and pushed the Hellcat into after-dark operations. These weren't just soldiers. They were craftsmen of the sky, using the Hellcat like a sculptor uses his chisel, precise, deadly, and efficient. And yet, for all its glory, not everything about the Hellcat was perfect. Its size and weight made it less agile in tight turns than the Zero. Pilots had to rely on speed and power, not finesse. Landing on carriers was still a nerve-wracking experience, especially when the deck was slick or pitching in rough seas. Some even called it the bulldog of the sky. Powerful, loyal, but occasionally hard to control. Then there were the rumors, the kind whispered among pilots between missions. Some said the Navy favored the Hellcat over the faster, sleeker F-4U Corsair for political reasons. The Corsair was faster, yes, but it had a reputation for being tricky to land on carriers. The Hellcat, by contrast, was forgiving. It could slam onto the deck and still come to a halt without snapping its landing gear. That reliability, more than raw performance, earned it its place aboard nearly every major carrier. Others argued that its incredible kill ratio, 19-1, wasn't just the plane, but the pilots behind it. By 1944, Japan's best aces had been lost in earlier battles, replaced by less trained flyers. The Americans, on the other hand, had experience, resources, and radar-guided tactics. Still, even with those advantages, the Hellcat's design was unmatched in its role. It didn't just dominate, it defined the standard for naval fighters for years to come. Meanwhile, on the production line back home, another battle was being fought. Grumman's factory ran day and night, 7 days a week. Over 12,000 Hellcats rolled off the lines, each one hand-checked, tested, and tuned. The speed of production was staggering, and rumors spread that corners must have been cut. But pilots who flew them said otherwise. Each aircraft felt solid, dependable, and precise. Even the factory workers got nicknames: the Iron Women, the Long Island Angels. Many were women who replaced men gone to war, building the very machines that protected them. By late 1944, the Hellcat was everywhere, from the Marshall Islands to the Philippines, from Okinawa to Iwo Jima. Wherever there was sky, there were Hellcats. It became more than a machine, it became a symbol. The growl of its engine was the sound of the Pacific War turning in America's favor. When Japan surrendered in 1945, The Hellcat had racked up over 5,000 enemy kills, more than any other Allied naval aircraft. Yet, like many war heroes, its glory was short-lived. The world was moving on, to jets, to rockets, to the next evolution of flight. The Hellcat was retired from U.S. service by 1954, its final variants converted into night fighters, drones, and training aircraft. A few were sold overseas, serving quietly in smaller air forces for years. One even raced in post-war air competitions, stripped of military paint and tuned for speed. But while newer planes took the spotlight, the Hellcat's influence never disappeared. Its DNA can be seen in nearly every U.S. Navy fighter that came after. The Bearcat, the Panther, even the early jets that replaced propellers with afterburners. And its legacy? Unquestionable. The Hellcat didn't just help win battles, it saved lives. Pilots trusted it. Mechanics swore by it. Commanders relied on it. It was, in every sense, the perfect partner for a carrier fleet. Powerful, protective, and built to endure. Even today, the surviving Hellcats, maybe a dozen still flyable worldwide, roar through the skies at air shows, a thunderous echo of the past. Visitors watch, heads tilted upward, listening to that same deep engine rumble that once shook the Pacific. It's not just nostalgia. It's respect. Respect for a machine that carried men through chaos and brought them home. And maybe that's what makes the F-6F Hellcat more than just the best U.S. naval fighter of World War II. It was a promise that no matter how dark things got, America would find a way to fight back harder, smarter, and stronger. Because the Hellcat wasn't just built to win a war, it was built to never lose one again.